business partnership in Raritan Valley Country Club, and obviously to all of you to take several hours out of your day to come listen to, a technology person talk about technology is not the most exciting thing sometimes, but I appreciate the time that you have given to this presentation. And my hope is that you're going to get some value out of this moving forward. So a couple questions. Has anybody used ChatGPT? Excellent. How many people use it every single day? Okay, that's kind of what I figured. Well, yeah, I use it every single day, and I know a lot of people who do, and they get a lot of value out of it. So a couple other questions. How many people are excited and curious about this, skeptical and suspicious, fearful, and overwhelmed? Okay, I think we're all of the above, exactly. The final question, how many came for the free lunch? So my intention today is to have you learn about ChatGPT and what it does and how it will benefit everybody moving forward. I just want to make sure, I've got a couple versions of this. Excuse me for 1 second. I just want to make sure I've got the latest version up on the screen. Give me a second, please. Alrighty. Sorry about that. Yeah, I did not have the current version. Sorry. All right. So my intention is that you're going to know what it is in artificial intelligence after this, why ChatGPT is actually revolutionary and evolutionary. Everybody thinks technology drops on the market, but it never really does. There's a whole backstory. I'll let you know exactly what it costs and how you can use it for free. And more importantly, which is why I think you came, is to maximize your business potential with this and how companies are actually using it. And I hope, it's a very complex subject, so I hope that some of it will be demystified for you. And my hope, again, is that you use it and you find some value in it, as many people have. It's a very complex topic, brings up a lot of issues. You're going to hear all kinds of things you probably have already about it. Some people think it's the answer to all of our problems, world hunger and climate change and all of that. And other people are saying it's going to take all our jobs and eventually kill us. I don't really know. I don't think anybody really knows. The second one I'm not so sure about. But I do know that it does solve quite a few problems, and there's a huge promise if we can use this technology. Thinking machines create many issues. The fact that we have a machine that thinks, whatever that means, and all these issues are philosophical, social, political, economic, legal, privacy issues, a lot of those, and a lot of moral issues too around it. But we're not going to talk about those today. If you're interested in that, you should get the book, The Age of AI by Henry Kissinger. Kind of a smart guy, understands world politics. Eric Schmidt at Google kind of understands technology. And Daniel Huttenlocher, he's an MIT and Amazon person. A couple other people who know a little bit about the promise and the use of technology. And the reason that it's really important that we should address these issues is other countries are using this and putting it in place. In fact, Vladimir Putin said several years ago, 6 or 8 years ago, that the one who dominates this, the one who becomes the leader in this sphere, will be the ruler of the world, okay? That got a lot of people's attention, okay? So it's a big subject, but we're not going to go down that path. So artificial intelligence, exactly what is it, okay? Well, that term has been around since the 50s, okay? And really what it is pretty simple. You take large data sets, you feed it a lot of data, and now we have a lot of data, of course. You add algorithms, programming, and then you put machine learning on it, which is that the machine then takes its result and reiteratively goes back and runs that algorithm again. So that's how we got, nobody can beat a computer in chess, because a chess program actually played itself millions of times to find out exactly what worked and what didn't work. And as a matter of fact, chess experts are studying what the computer's done to figure out what the logic was, because they can't even figure it out. So they think faster than our brain can think. Now, thinking is a whole other question, but it processes information faster. Whether it's really thinking or not, that's why I always put it in quotes, not quite sure. Our mission here, really, with this is to learn how to use it effectively. If you give it a lot of information, you're going to get better answers. If you give it better questions, you get better answers. Pretty logical, right? And working with it is how we're going to be able to understand how to use it effectively. Tech is always an evolution and a revolution. So the tech is surrounding us. AI has been surrounding us for years, and it's embedded in our daily lives, and sometimes we don't even realize it. Amazon is nothing more than the old Sears catalog, and the young people here, I talk to them, what's a Sears catalog? Well, Amazon is a Sears catalog on steroids, really. Uber is nothing but taking technology and applying it to a need. People need to go from here to there. Waze took the place of paper maps. Netflix blew away Blockbuster by, embracing the internet. Obviously, how many people have bought the World Book Encyclopedia? And the young people don't even know what that is, I'm sure. Now we have Wikipedia, and the last time I went to a travel agency, I don't remember, because the travel sites have kind of taken over that. And has anybody here dialed 411 recently? That's another one that the young people don't even know anything about. I use Siri for that also. It's surrounding us. It's around us all the time and has been. That's why it's an evolution and a revolution. And ChatGPT is a piece of this artificial intelligence evolution, okay? And it was inevitable, it was predictable, and yes, it is incredibly groundbreaking. It's the first technology that actually challenges the belief that only humans can be creative and conversational. So you can create conversations with the ChatGPT, and yeah, well, like some human beings, the conversation goes a little sideways from time to time. But it's the first technology that can do that. And it's the first technology that has 100 million users around the world in 2 months, okay? When you look at technology going all the way back to the telephone, let's say, or the automobile, okay, how long did it take to have 100 million people use those technologies? And today, they released it in November, and by January, they had 100 million users. And because of that, every company now must have an AI initiative. And that's not me speaking, that's hedge funds, investment managers, they're all concerned about this for their investments. How are you going to take advantage of this, or how is this going to destroy your business model? ChatGPT is chat, a text conversation with a generative pre-trained transformer. Okay. Forget about that. It took me about 6 weeks to remember all that myself. But what it's done is it's created an entire industries around this technology that produces answers very creatively and very intuitively in some ways. And because of that, there's countless websites out there now. You have to beware, because there's only one OpenAI ChatGPT, okay? And that's it's openai.com. And there is thousands of ones that want you to think that they're the real ChatGPT. In fact, when I first got it, I went to the OpenAI one on my phone, and I wasn't really at OpenAI. I was on a Chinese app that was taking my information, everything I put into it, and God only knows what else. So you have to be very, very careful. There's a lot of fake ones out there. And there is no ChatGPT smartphone app right now. You need to use it on a web browser or a web browser on your phone, because it actually works better in a web browser on your phone because you can talk to it. On the web browser I have, you can't interact with that website via voice. So it's actually better as a website on your phone, and because there's no app, that's probably the best way to use it. There's a lot of issues around it, okay? Employees are putting proprietary company data into the search, which, if they're putting it into, not an OpenAI site, who knows where it goes? And if they're putting it into the OpenAI site, it learns by taking everything you put into it. So the more you give it, the more it returns. Same thing, Google's been doing that for years. They take our information, and by doing so, they give us a lot of suggestions or whatever. Amazon's been doing it forever. That's how we get our, this is something you should probably want to buy. Or Netflix has been using it with, giving us suggestions. We're giving them information. So you have to be very careful, and you have to warn employees that they should not be putting any company information into it. There's a whole other thing around this. In other words, you'll see where it writes software code. The question in the boardrooms now is if we use ChatGPT to create, software or any product, who owns the intellectual property around that? That's a really interesting question. But those are things I just want to throw out there that you have to be aware of. ChatGPT is owned and developed by a nonprofit, started by a bunch of Silicon Valley investors. Sound familiar, like just about every other tech company. And Microsoft, a few years ago, invested $11 billion. And for that, they got an exclusive license. Did you know that 5, 6 years ago when they did that? I didn't, okay? But that's what they did, very quietly, and they got an exclusive license to this. And now they dropped it on the world. The end of last year, 100 million users, and shockwaves through the entire technology community. And Microsoft, as you'll see, is now embedding it across their entire ecosystem, from the simple Outlook and Word all the way up to the Azure cloud services that they have. The current version, you need to understand, has stopped learning in 2021. So you feed it a lot of data. So they stopped feeding the current version in 2021. So if you're looking for current information, you're not going to find it. In fact, you may find a lot of bogus information that it makes up. But when it comes to other creative ideas, it's really good. So it's got a lot of inaccuracies in that data set and whatever. The cost, you can log in for free. It's really inexpensive. I bought the $20 a month version only because that puts you at the front of the line. You cut to the front of the line when it's very, very busy, and it's very busy many times. And you also get the latest version, version 4, for the $20. But you can use it for free and play around with it. 3.5 version's absolutely fine. And then for commercial use, it's incredibly inexpensive. That's why all these other apps have grown up around it to give specific information on industries or whatever, and it's relatively inexpensive for them to do these queries. Microsoft has made it, OpenAI has made it incredibly attractive to use this technology. This is what the main screen looks like when you get in there. When you log in, you can either choose to learn it, try it, or log in. And if you do, it'll tell you a few things. It's a free research preview, how they collect your data, the privacy, and they want your feedback. Because every query that you do, you can say, well, that was a really good response or a bad response. They're trying to learn how to make this better, and it's getting improved every single hour. And this is what the main screen looks like. On the left, you'll see all of your previous queries. So I use it for everything from how to get shade landscaping on my lawn, which Philip, thank you very much for your advice. Philip owns a wholesale nursery. So, you would go back and take a look at these things, and you could reiteratively ask the question several different ways. You can use it for creative content. That's one of the biggest uses of it. And I used it to create the email invite. And I didn't use it verbatim, but I took a lot of information out of those and used it for the invitation. I also use it to create this presentation, okay? Because I asked it, what are the top questions a business leader wants to know about ChatGPT? And as you can see, everything that's bolded, I've included in this presentation. And I left everything else by the wayside because we don't have a 3-hour presentation here. So continually, I also created several marketing plans for Alpine by asking it questions over and over again, giving it more and more valid information about Alpine Business Systems and our marketplace and what we do. And that feedback loop, it improved the marketing plans that it gave me incredibly well. It's a reiterative process that regenerates itself and learns because you tell it, I like this, I didn't like that, this one's worse than the last response. So you interact with it. It's conversation. You can actually hold conversations. In fact, you can take it to a point where it then thinks it's a person, and it starts interacting with you as if it's a person. And that was one of the bugs that they found about a month ago, and they had to fix because it was starting to spin out of control. Customer service. We've all used chatbots. They're horrible, right? I mean, come on. And they told me this was going to be the panacea for customer service. It's miserable. It was horrible. Well, with this technology now, they're able to improve those chatbots. Responses to inquiries. You can craft responses to questions and whatever. Sales follow-ups. Meta, Shopify, Canva, all of these high-tech retail organizations are using it to automatically reply to consumers and customers of theirs. They're constantly honing it, and they've got some controls and guardrails in place. But I'm sure there's going to be some wacky things that come out from time to time. But they're able to process way more information with valid responses than they've ever been able to do before. I have a client who has a database of several million consumers. Okay, they sell them a product, and they reach out to them through many marketing channels. And every day, they end up with hundreds of emails, okay, from potential consumers. And those range from, take me off your email list, to, I'm kind of interested, I need more information, to, I want to buy right now. Well, in the past, they've had people looking at those hundreds of emails and figuring out what's going on. Well, they did a programming project, because they have a programming team, a software team there, and they took about 3 or 4 weeks, and they feed all those emails in, and every day, as they come in, they go into the appropriate buckets. The do not call list, the, okay, we need somebody to respond to this customer, we need another one to close this deal. So their ability to process that has gone through the roof, and because of that, they get several hundred voicemails every night after the reception desk closes, and they're now taking the transcription from those voicemails, feeding it into some algorithms programming powered by ChatGPT and OpenAI's technology, and they're actually now able to process those voicemails. Over 100 a night they get, they tell me, and they hope that when this project is done, they're not going to need all of those people to listen to those things, and those people can be put at much higher value activities. They're not looking to fire anybody, they're looking to get them into more high value jobs. You can write bios with it, okay, but there's a lot of errors and omissions, all right? But it comes up with some very creative ideas, okay? I asked it to write a 2-page biography of myself. Well, you can't really see it, but in the red is all the bogus stuff. I never went to Rutgers University. I don't have a degree in business administration, so I would have to take that out, as well as a few other things here. I was on the board of directors of the business partnership 23 years ago, okay? I am not now. But I kind of like, Bill Blum is a dynamic and accomplished business leader, has made a significant, I like that. I'm going to use that, okay? Obviously, in marketing, you can do a whole lot of other things. Social media posts. I was talking to somebody here today that they're actually creating social media posts. We know people doing that. It gives you ideas for newsletters. Pitch decks. Silicon Valley is using this to develop pitch decks for all of the VCs and all the things that they do. And it explains some very complex subjects, okay? Give me an example of how ChatGPT can explain a complex subject, and I typed it wrong there. Certainly, let's talk about the topic of quantum entanglement, okay? What is quantum entanglement? I have no idea. Now, do I know whether this is bogus or not? I don't, but I've read research, interviews and articles from MIT engineers and very smart people, much smarter than me, and probably in quantum entanglement. And they've said that although you have to really check the accuracy, they are completely blown away at how it explains a complex subject very, very well. Probably better than they could like that. So we're seeing, and this is just the beginning, we're seeing that this is being used in a lot of different areas. Translation, okay? how many languages are you able to translate? Well, I can translate it over 100 languages, Bill, and here they all are. And they started listing them all out. English, German, Italian, Dutch, Turkish, Indonesian, Norwegian, Romanian. I mean, it just goes on. And it can do this on the fly, okay? And I'll show you how Microsoft and other companies are building that into their technologies. This was an incredible, groundbreaking. We've never seen anything like this in technology. This shocked Google to the core, okay? In fact, when Microsoft released it, 3 weeks later, there was a red alert email at Google about code red. Microsoft is just like almost eating our lunch in search, okay? And Google is concerned about this. I can tell you that. I heard an analyst yesterday on CNBC saying that, listen, you know, this is a threat to Google's business model in some ways. Now, that's not to say Google's going to go away. They have some of the most incredible AI. They're the ones behind something called DeepMind. DeepMind. That was the technology that actually unmanned flew a fighter jet. And John Irwin over there, a good friend and client of mine, I mean, he used to fly Air Force jets back in the 70s. This was an unmanned flight, and it's because they used DeepMind, the Google technology, to do this. And it's embedded in a lot of the most groundbreaking stuff. So Google is not out of the game. It's just a matter of, you know, what they're going to do with this threat from Microsoft. So there's a lot of tech companies that have used this in a lot of ways. There's an app called Grammarly. My good friend and colleague Ian was telling me he uses that all the time to look at the grammar, but not only the grammar, the tone of the emails that he's sending out, and hone those to be better and to get his point across better. So it's not just Microsoft doing this, but we're a Microsoft Gold partner, and therefore, you know, we're very familiar with the Microsoft ecosystem. And by the way, I think they're poised to like really take over a lot, even more than they do now. I mean, how many people use Microsoft products every day, right? I mean, come on, we all do. But if you haven't used the new Bing, okay, that's their new search engine, and Bing was horrible up until like the new one came out about 6 weeks ago. I always used Google, so I started using Bing because Bing is now built on the same AI engine that OpenAI uses. And the information in the new Bing is not old, it hasn't stopped in 2021. It actually goes out to the internet, grabs all the information, and gives you the information you're looking for, rather than an ad for somebody who wants to sell you something, which is Google's business model, okay? So you have the information you need right in front of you, okay? In fact, Phil over there was saying that he used it to find difference between a couple tools that they sell. And he was pretty much blown away by how good it was. And that was with OpenAI. If you use Bing, it also gives you in Bing something you don't get in OpenAI, which are footnotes. So if you want to check the accuracy, you want to find out where it's getting its information from, it'll give you footnotes that show this came from the New York Times, this came from CNET, this came from the Wall Street Journal. So I recommend everybody try the new Bing, and that search engine is beginning to take over in the tech industry. And computers are now being shipped with that as the default because of that. So that's what the new Bing search looks like. Down on the bottom it says ask me anything, and it comes back and gives you all kinds of things. In the Microsoft Office applications, we've had dictation in all these apps. I don't know if anybody uses that, but it's gotten really, really good. Early on it was horrible, but right now I use it every single day to craft emails and paragraphs of text. Yeah, I have to go in and correct some things here and there, but it's just so much easier than having to type things out, especially because I don't type that well. It'll also now in Outlook, when you get an email, I don't know if anybody's noticed this, but when you get an email, it'll give you a little bubble with several different suggestions on how to reply. And I have to tell you, about 50% of the time, it's spot on of what I would say, and I just click on that, and I'm off to my next email. And none of us have a lot of emails in our inbox to deal with, right? Yeah. And then Microsoft is obviously going to build this into a lot more in their ecosystem. But in Teams Premium, okay, which is the Microsoft collaboration platform, where you can chat, you can store documents, you can share documents, you can do meetings and events and all that. That just came out a few weeks ago with the Teams Premium. Now you have to pay a few bucks for this, right? But you get an intelligent recap of the meeting. It automatically generates the meeting notes, recommended tasks for everybody based on everything that was said, and personalized highlights for you. It'll also divide the meeting into AI-generated chapters, okay, with personalized timeline markers for you to see how the meeting progressed and if you wanted to review something. They've had the transcription piece and the closed caption piece in there for quite a while. I don't know if you noticed it or used it or not, but you have to click on the 3 dots and find out how to get to it. But you can turn on recordings, and as you're recording it, it'll do a transcript, and then you can search that transcript to go to the exact spot in the meeting where somebody said something. So if it's a long meeting and a lot of content that you want to look at, this is the way to actually do that. It also has live captions and live translation. So you'll be able to, we were on a call with somebody speaking Portuguese in Brazil the other day, and if we use this feature, we would be able to see what they're saying. They could speak in their native language, and we could see on the screen what it is they're saying. So it's doing live translation. And personal coaching. This was something that I thought was very interesting, especially given the way I talk, okay? Which is like a fire hose, as you can tell, okay? And I often use the same words over and over again. I don't think I'm any different than any amateur speaker in that regard. But what it does is it gives you, you turn that on, and it'll tell you, this was a meeting I had earlier this week with my team. You spoke for 7 minutes and 21 seconds, and you got a lot of filler words, Bill, okay? And your pace was way too fast. And this seems like a monologue. It doesn't seem like a conversation, okay? Well, my wife is over there, love her, and she's told me that many times, okay? So now I have Microsoft telling me that. So it said that I used the word, 23 times in 7 minutes. I didn't know that, Anyway, it's code, and it gives you guidance on code. Kevin Boyle, another good friend and client, he's got a whole programming team. We had a conversation with him about a month ago, and I mentioned this to him, and he said, I've seen it, I played with it maybe a little bit, I don't know much yet. And his software development lead said, oh, we've been messing around with this since it came out, because it's pretty incredible what it does with software coding. And by the way, you think Microsoft had an ulterior motive for investing $11 billion into software that writes code? Because that's all they do, right? So it's incredible when it comes to that. So you can't really see this, but I did an experiment, but we started doing client satisfaction surveys on every ticket, and lo and behold, we get a lot of 5 stars, and we have like a 99% 5-star rating. Not that I'm saying we're perfect, because we do make mistakes, but I said we should put this on our website. So I sent Steve Santo over there, my lead developer, on it with Joe, and I said we need like a scrolling banner. So this is just a picture of it, but it's a scrolling banner up to the minute with the customer surveys that we get, with how many stars we have, and if they have a comment, it puts the comment in there. So I said to myself, maybe ChatGPT can kind of write this code for us. So I asked it very simply, write me a WordPress plugin that pulls 4 data fields from a data set somewhere and scrolls right to left on the screen. All right? So I'll show you what that has given me. So I put that in, and that's what I got in about 5 seconds. Now, is that code that's going to work? I don't know. But the fact that it wrote the code and gave me instructions and guidance on how to use it, I thought was just mind-blowing. I started writing code 36, 38 years ago. Haven't written any since, but it's just mind-boggling. And it's not just me doing this. Many, many people much smarter than me are doing it. So we've been using this in cybersecurity for years, okay? If you're a client of mine, you've got a monitoring platform and a management platform that protects you from ransomware. That came out about 5 years ago. It looks at the behavior on a machine. If it's exfiltrating data and encrypting it rapidly, it shuts that machine off, takes it off the network, and sends us an alert saying we got to get on this machine. We've seen it work once or twice in the past 5 years, and it works incredibly well. Phishing protection, same thing. We have a phishing protection platform that looks at the content of the emails as well as every single bit that comes across a URL, a link in an email. It opens that link up, processes the information faster than any human being, and tells you whether this is a safe site. Microsoft and many other people in the industry are using it for endpoint detection and response. Well, what is that? That's antivirus on steroids, okay? It looks at the behaviors of a machine and gives you what's right and what's wrong and all those anomalies. And then you've got sync, security information, event management, all kinds of technobabble. This is a technobabble segment right here, okay? But we've been using this for years, okay? And the endpoint detection and response now is absolutely incredible. Blew away the entire antivirus industry. And of course, there's other uses for it. People are using it for recipes, playlists. Jason, my lead infrastructure guy, he's got a band. On the weekends, he uses it to create playlists. I've written poems to my grandson, gave him some information and said, write me a poem in the style of Dr. Seuss. And sure enough, in about 2 seconds, I had a poem about my grandson in the style of Dr. Seuss. Now, the more you put in about him, the more you're going to get out. And it was absolutely unbelievable. And of course, teachers are using it to create lesson plans and term paper, because we all heard the thing, oh my God, how are you going to tell what a term paper is? Well, we've heard about that, but guess what? They now have technology to determine 90% accuracy whether this was created by a computer or a human being, okay? So they're going to be able to improve that whole process. Of course, music, near and dear to my heart. I was a musician, still am. Professionally, I was for 25 years. And I don't know if anybody heard, but the ripples in the music industry are severe, okay? About 2 weeks ago, somebody uploaded into TikTok a mashup of Drake and The Weeknd. I don't know if you know who they are, but they're popular artists, big money popular artists. They put a mashup between them onto TikTok, and does it look like that? Well, it is them, okay? And they created a song that they did, and it went viral, absolutely viral. The music industry is really upset about this. You thought Napster was bad? Oh my God. And of course, people are doing travel itineraries on it now. My wife got an email from Expedia the other day that said, we now have ChatGPT in Expedia. And of course, in the future, we'll have personal assistants, we'll ask it stuff, it'll know about us, and it'll give us information. Obviously, the legal industry has jumped on this as well. There was a quote from the National Law Review that it can help write briefs, gives you ideas on strategy, all of those things. Healthcare data analysis, that is absolutely huge. The amount of data that comes out of those diagnostic machines when they plug you into it, and who's going to figure out what all this means. Well, they're using that now, these kind of artificial intelligence technologies to do that. They've discovered drugs. They've feeded a whole lot of molecules, a whole lot of diseases, and it says, okay, which one of these can you create a molecule that will address these diseases? And they've actually had a couple that are in clinical trials now, and they don't even know why it works for some reason, but it does. And in London, they have a real interesting one, which is going to improve the quality of life for tracheotomy patients and their friends and their loved ones, because it does lip reading, okay? No longer will their friends and loved ones need to understand by lip reading. They'll put this in front of them, and it'll translate the lip reading for them. Just incredible advances in medical technology. So I went, I think, 2 minutes, 3 minutes over my 30-minute dissertation here, so I appreciate everybody sticking around, but I just want to leave you with a few thoughts, okay? There's a lot of issues and challenges, like with any other technology. I mean, when Oppenheimer and those guys created the the atom bomb. Obviously, there was a lot going on there, okay? And there's a lot of issues and challenges to this day. But the core technology's impact has been absolutely incredible. And, you know, we're all filled with the same emotions about this. The question is, what are we going to do, okay? And I just want to leave you with this. There's three kinds of companies, and you've probably heard this before. People who make things happen, those who watch what happened, and those who wonder what happened, okay? Sears, Blockbuster, they all kind of wondered what happened here, okay? We're here to watch what happens, but the good thing about this technology is that it's interactive. It needs us to interact with it to get better, okay? And we need to take control of that. So again, my hope for you is that you use it, you find value in it, as many people have, and it gives you a competitive edge and helps you to succeed and prosper. And this will be like watching a movie on network television. I'll go right through the credits here. I've read a lot about it. There's a lot of people's ideas I brought to the table here. But I'm going to leave that with if anybody has any questions. Has the microphone turned off? Or?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I figured.
Okay.
I'm sure you can hear me, though. Peter.
Will we be able to see this presentation online?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I have a videographer putting it up there. We'll put it up online. I'm also probably going to do another one in like a studio setting. If this comes out well, yeah, you'll be able to see this, and I'll distribute it to everybody. Absolutely.
So,
Jay.
Here's my question, because you're not the first person in 4 months who said this is big. But it's big enough that, you know, Holly and I decided we better come and listen. Now, I'm reminded of probably sometime in the 1980s. I have a younger brother who's 5 years younger than I am, and he was a real geek who was playing on Apple II's or something.
In the 80s, yeah.
In the 80s, and he said to me one day, I mean, I was hard at work on my job in the city, and he said to me one evening, he said, you know, Jay, there's this thing called the World Wide Web, and you should really learn about it because it's going to be big.
Yeah.
And I was saying to him, you know, look, Phil, because he was a guy who's never really worked his whole life, and I thought he was irritating me. You know? So, in the scheme of importance, I mean, so my younger brother in 1985 or 7 or something said to me, there's this big thing. And I ignored it for about a year until it just started coming. Place that by comparison with what you think is happening now.
Oh, I think Bill Gates, I don't know if you saw the quotes at the beginning there, but Bill Gates said it is the most amazing thing he's ever seen since he first saw the graphical user interface in 1980. So the Windows interface was developed by Xerox in the 70s. He saw it in the 80s. Obviously, Apple jumped on it much quicker than him, but he came out with Windows in the mid-90s, okay? And he said that it is more amazing than that, okay? And so I would defer to people like that. And another quote was a client of mine, Tom Healy, who was a ex-managing partner at Goldman Sachs for many years. He's now a Harvard senior fellow. He's up in his 80s, and he doesn't really even know how to use a computer. He called the other day and said, I need to talk to your expert on chat. So nobody understood what he was talking about, so he put him through. Bill would know. So he put on, I said, what are you talking about? Like a text, a Teams chat? He goes, no, Chat G, whatever, that new thing today, you know? And he said, I said, so you use it? I use it every day. Now, he's one of the smartest guys I know, had the pleasure of knowing, and he said, Bill, this technology is going to be more important for the next 10 years, as the internet has been for the last 20, okay? So it's not just me saying this. I'm in very good company with people like him and, you know, financial managers, financial analysts yesterday that watch the technology industry and world events and whatever. They're all saying that this is huge. I would put it in the category of the internet, and then some.
Bill, I mean, pretty clear this is going to be enormously disruptive to the workforce, to job markets. It's going to require some new skills and retraining of people. Other than hiring out, which is a good step, I mean, how do you say people could learn about this? How could people really prepare for that? Because I think every indication is not just that it's arriving, it's accelerating.
Thanks, Ed. That's an excellent question. What I would say is start talking to your employees about it and ask them to play around with it. We've asked our employees to get a personal account, not put any business information into it yet, and play around with it, get to use it. It's like any other technology. You know, you walk up to a Windows computer for the first time, like, what is this thing? Oh, it's a mouse. Okay, that's what I have to do. And we have to learn about it like that. And to your point where it's going to, I read an article the other day, and I think it was an MIT journal, that said they're finding out that this will actually help people who don't have high education to be able to use technology and create jobs for them. Because we can teach them how to use this aid, this technology aid, to actually get some work done. And before, they didn't have these kinds of tools. It's very easy to use the tools. So to answer your question, use it, encourage your people to use it and get to know it. That's what I've done, and you can ask Steve and my wife and Ben and the people here who work with me. I've been talking about it every day.
Bill,
Sure. Tom.
I recently heard an interview with Elon Musk. He made a very profound statement.
Elon Musk, yeah.
Elon Musk, that this could be a civilization-ending
Oh, yeah.
endeavor. Do you believe that's possible, and what kind of regulations are going to be coming along?
Well, the genie is out of the bottle, and it's, you know, it's out there. And what the regulations are going to do, I really don't know. That's why I said in one of the opening slides, like, some people think it's going to be a panacea. If you read Bill Gates' book about climate change, he said technology is the way that we're going to actually defeat, you know, climate change, because it looks like we're not getting our act together with putting billions of tons of carbon into the air and atmosphere. And if we can find ways of capturing that and using technology to do it, that's another great book. So that's one side of the equation. The other side is that if you take it to an extreme, there's something called the singularity, where, you know, technology begins to take over. And I don't know if you saw the movie 2001, you know, there's a scene in there where, you know, the robot, basically, he asked, you know, how open the door. I can't do that, Dave, you know. So that was a portending of what you're talking about, that the machines will dominate us. Whether that's going to happen, I really don't know, but really smart people are thinking about it, like Ray Kurzweil. He's got a book on the singularity. I'm waiting for his third book to come out. It keeps going. I just found out it's coming out in 2025 now. And he talks about that eventual, you know, I mean, it gets so crazy where some people think that we're actually living in a simulation of a civilization hundreds of years in the future that have created us in a computer. I mean, it can get really crazy, some of the thinking. I really don't know. I just know that it's here and it's out of the bottle and people are using it. And by the way, I mean, Putin said that who dominates that will dominate the world. So that was one of the other reasons officially that Microsoft got seriously involved, because they said we can't let Vladimir Putin and the people in North Korea and China and Iran begin to, you know, dominate this industry. That was one of their moral reasons for getting in and putting that $11 billion, along with the fact they can write a lot of software code. Any other questions? As you can see, I can go on for days about this, and my wife will tell you. Well, thank you all very much. Oh, I'm sorry.
Bill, I just want to say thank you for putting yourself out there and sharing this with us. My 13-year-old is always trying to challenge ChatGPT with what, you know, and he's like, Mom, I could write my papers with this now. And I'm like, no, you
No,
cannot.
you can't.
But we can use it to help us think through the writing process as well, right? Like,
Absolutely.
This is something that, I don't want it to help him, I don't want to teach him how to cheat with it, but it helps to be a little more creative as well with our writing, even with the younger generation. I wish I had it when I was 13.
Absolutely.
But
Yeah.
I don't want to, you know, my fear is that it's like almost dumbing down the younger.
That is the fear, and I had a couple quotes up about that from the Barnes & Noble education expert. They're writing software around this at Barnes & Noble, and he said that it should not take the place of any kind of critical thinking, but like anything else, I see it as an aid to what we do. Like, my smartphone is just an extension of me in a sense. It gives me tools that I would not otherwise have. I mean, Waze and GPS, these are all technologies that we take for granted now that have enabled us in ways were never possible before that. So yeah, and yeah, the young people, I don't know if you saw the quote from Mark Cuban. He said, my 13-year-old just used ChatGPT to create a trash talk with one of his friends about his friend's favorite team. And Mark Cuban said, the world has changed forever. You know? So you're right, it's very creative. It gives insight because it pulls a lot of incredible information, and it knows all about grammar and spelling and language and everything. And they're called large language models, LLMs. I didn't bring that into play, but you'll see that term, large language model, because that's what it is. It takes a lot of words and processes them faster than humans can. Jay?
Just go back for a second. You said it stopped assembling its knowledge base in 2021.
Yes.
So what does that mean?
Well, that means if you use OpenAI and you ask it a question about current events, I saw a demonstration of this. It asked about Hillary Clinton's second term as president. And it came back, it created this whole bogus that she won the election in 2016 and won in 2020 again. And it was just incredible. The bogus information that it pulled from the internet, because as we know, just because it's on the internet doesn't mean it's true. And it pulled all that, and it stopped pulling that data in 2021. That's why if you're looking for anything, current events or whatever, or any factual information, you have to look at it very carefully. And if you want anything with very current events, that's when you should use like Bing, that search engine now, because it pulls current information much better. But I hope that answered your question, Jay.
Well, but it also sounds like it could be a little scary that, in terms of misinformation.
It's one of the biggest problems with this technology is people are using it for disinformation. I mean, we've had deep fakes for a couple of years now, where you could take a video of some person, like they do with the Drake and the Weeknd, video and song, and they just mashed up a song, and they have political ads now. The first ever AI generated political ad came out earlier this week. And you can use it for good, and you can use it for very bad as well. So the potential for disinformation and all of that is before we saw it with tweets and Twitter and all these other false information sites, and obviously what the Russians tried to do in upsetting our elections, the potential for that now has gone through the roof. Okay. Yesterday I saw that, I forget who it was, a high government official thought he was actually conversing with Vladimir Zelensky.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he got tricked into thinking he was actually talking to the leader of Ukraine. And he wasn't, because it sounded like him, he used the same language and whatever. It's pretty scary stuff, yeah. But at the same time, it's here, and I think we have to contend with it and learn how to use it. Holly?
Have they published any planned roadmap for future releases and when they would catch up in time to more current events?
They
or-
really haven't said anything about that. One thing, Microsoft has exclusive use of the technology, and they're building, that's why they built it into Bing, and they're building it throughout the Microsoft platform. And again, Google has a major initiative to compete with them as well. But to get a glimpse into the roadmap, I mean, they're pretty tight-lipped about where they're going with it and how they're going to use it.
So as somebody that like monitors this space more than me, did you know the release was coming
No.
when it did?
No.
Or even
Nobody
that
did.
it was that close to being here?
Nobody did.
Wow, so it just dropped.
I'm telling you, it was a
Yeah.
red alert at Google. They sent an email to all the executives in December, said, we need to get our act together and we need to compete with this. Yeah, and typically Microsoft, it was very different from Microsoft. All these companies changed, but they classically have done things very quietly and very, you know, with $120 billion in cash, I guess they can do whatever they want, but they just very quietly take over industries. Anybody here ever use WordStar, WordPerfect? Yeah. WordPerfect had a campus of people, probably 1,000 customer service reps in the 90s, okay? Nobody uses WordPerfect anymore. Microsoft very quietly, Lotus 123, anybody? Lotus 123?
Yeah.
Gone, okay? Microsoft SQL, their database, came out in the late 80s, early 90s, and it was a joke, you know. The mainframe guys were like, that's a toy, it's a toy. Now, I mean, Microsoft SQL is one of the biggest databases used on the planet. Typically, they just slowly, gradually take over markets. They didn't do that with this. They just dropped this on the world suddenly. Yeah, I guess if you watch, you know, the financial papers that they're invested $11 billion, you kind of think, what are they thinking? Where's this going, you know? And that was out there, I'm sure, but I didn't see it, and a lot of people didn't. Google didn't, for sure.
Thanks.
One more question, does this have biases?
Oh, it's filled with biases. Yeah. Oh my God.
So who controls that?
The programmers, and that's one of the problems. That's one of the philosophical, moral issues, is that we find bias in just about every software program that's written. Some of it, I would think, is intentional for those disinformation things, but also we all have biases. I mean, you know, naturally, we are who we are, you know, and programmers build that in because they have natural tendencies to think about things natural ways. Cultures are different, everybody's different. So that's going to end up in the software somewhere, and when it's making these kinds of decisions, that's why you have to be very careful about it, you know. There are biases, that's one of the biggest issues. Yep. Excellent question. Anybody else? Well, if you have any more curiosity about it, or you want to talk more about it, you know, I'm here, my team is here to you know, talk to you, have a conversation with you. If you're curious on how you can use it, we'd be happy to, you know, take you out for a cup of coffee and see about some of the ways that you can use it in your technologies and in your, to improve your efficiencies and workflows. I can tell you this, a lot of companies are doing it, and we all need to just get better at it. I know we at Alpine are consistently getting better at it and trying to understand it. Yes?
Well, with that $20 a month membership, the information you're putting in there is also not contained private, like that's going out.
Oh, there's nothing private on the
nothing
internet.
private
Yeah,
anymore.
exactly.
Like that's it's an internet thing.
Well,
Whatever you're putting in.
OpenAI, if you go to OpenAI, they will take the information. They tell you clearly that, you know, and they just came up with a privacy policy yesterday. They announced it, where you can actually say that you don't want it to store your queries. And so you can turn that off, and they won't store it, and they won't have any access to it. But they like to have access to it, just like Google does, just like Siri does, you know, just like Alexa keeps everything, whether you know it or not. That's been like that for years. Microsoft, well, OpenAI now has a privacy button. You can say, do not keep this and do not share this. Well, they already said they're not really sharing with anybody. They're using it to improve the product, okay? Now, a lot of people don't believe that. I don't know what's true or not, but what I would suggest, if that's a concern of yours, just turn that off. You'll be able to turn that off soon.
Thank you.
Joanne?
I just want to quickly tell everybody, thank you for coming, but before you leave, we have some nice bags for you to take. You take some of the cookies on the table as well.
Yeah, please help yourself to the gifts over there. And I just want to thank as well my entire team and the Somerset County Business